All right, we are live, and this is we're live on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and now Facebook. So we've just started a page on Facebook, and so if you are there, you can put your questions in the chat. And I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Um, there is a little bit of a delay between when you ask the questions and when I am able to answer them. Um, so just know that there's a little bit of delay. I am trying to monitor all of the different streams, and we have the lovely DJ helping get your questions with the stream in all of those different places. So, like I said, we are live streaming on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now Facebook. We have a new Facebook page that you can follow, and I would love for you to follow it and help me grow that audience. Share some of the videos. New videos and old videos are coming out on there. I've also uh, got a really fun announcement today that I have the cover for my new book that's coming out on April the 14th. It is Rituals for Heretics, Transcendent Rites for Atheists and People Who Aren't Sure About God. I've talked about it a couple of times, and we had a little bit of a subtitle change because my original title was Rituals for Heretics, Atheists, and People Who Aren't Sure About God. And that was a too long of a title. So I'm excited to share the cover with you and that it's going to be coming out on April the 14th. So that is a really exciting announcement to be able to make. If you have a question, an answer, a comment, we are live on TikTok, Facebook, or TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and now Facebook, a new Facebook page that we just launched. And so, yeah, if you want to ask a question, I would love to answer those here in this live stream. And I see somebody said that they love my content. So thank you so much, um, Mystery and something. We also have DJ who is moderating chats and putting your questions in front of me. Question that I often get is what Bible translation that I recommend. And I recommend what the academic consensus is. The consensus is right now that the most accurate English translation of the Bible on the market is the New Revised Standard Updated Edition. And then I also like a little bit more readable version called the CEB, the Contemporary English Bible. It's really great. The least accurate Bible on the translation on the market right now is the King James version. Okay, I've got a couple of questions that I'm seeing on Instagram. Um, it's IOTA. Should we respond to what's happening with Philip Yancey? I am uh, I am not super aware. I can't remember. I saw the article on Philip Yancey, and let me just double check that I am remembering it correctly. Um, uh, I believe, yeah. So, he had an affair and with a woman for 8 years and retired from the ministry. You know, here's the thing. I think that one of the one of the things that we do with pastors is we treat them as if they are extra holy. Pastors are not. Pastors do bad things, and so the Bible says like, um, don't judge unless you're willing to be judged by the same standards. And I think that we judge pastors by different standards. Also, he was a person who really fought against a lot of those kinds of things. And so I don't think it's not right to call him on that and on the hypocrisy. Um, but I do think that he deserves grace and forgiveness, the opportunity to change and repent and heal those broken relationships. Those broken relationships don't just aren't just his family, but all the people who have learned from him and all of that. So, um, yeah, I think that that's what I think about how we should respond to that. But I think uh, the bigger thing is that we need to not in our heads put pastors on some sort of higher holiness pedestal, um, and not treat them as if everything that they say is going to be perfect and do is going to be perfect forever. Um, yeah, I think that's an important piece. Um, so we have another question. Let's see. What's your take on rational theism? So rational theism is this view that belief in God is reasonable and intellectually defensible, like grounded in philosophy and logic and evidence, rather than sort of blind faith in some sort of religious authority source. Um, I think rational theism is interesting. Uh, I There are different brands of this. And there is one brand that I think is I find frustrating in that it tries to argue against things like science and take things from different fields of study and try to tweak them, form them into an argument for theism, for a belief in God. I don't think that that's helpful. In the world of science, we have different areas of expertise, and so you look for the area of expertise in the domain that you are wanting to study. So if you want to study geology, you don't go to a cosmologist and you don't look at cosmological arguments, you look for geologists and geological evidence. And so the same is true with religious studies. And and there's also these like philosophical arguments for God. I have studied many of those in a bunch of different places in school and otherwise. I think that some people really find help in those. I don't find any help in those because I'm really skeptical and I can find a problem with every single one of them. Um, uh, so I that's not a thing for me. I think there's an argument to be made that throughout humanity, um, like 99.999% of humans that have ever existed have believed in some sort of God. Um, and so to say that there is nothing is to say that you have a better knowledge than basically all of the humans who've ever existed. Um, but yeah, I find for me that I am a deep skeptic, including of rational theism. All right. Uh, Wit Gains on Instagram. My friend is using the story of Hosea and Gomer as an excuse to stay in her toxic marriage. He cheats. She's studying a toxic YouVersion study called "Fighting for Your Marriage." Yeah, I Hosea and Gomer is an interesting story. So Hosea marries a a worker, and multiple times his wife goes, leaves him, becomes intimate with other people. He goes and gets her back. That is not talking about marriage. That story may not even be talking about an actual situation, because the point of that story is to symbolize God's relationship with the people of Israel, that the people of Israel keep leaving and God keeps going and getting them. And this idea that God doesn't abandon us, that God continues to pursue us and go after us. It has nothing to do with what you do in a toxic marriage where somebody is cheating. Now, I'm not an LMFT, I'm not a therapist, but I would say, instead of going to that Bible study or doing that Bible study about fighting for your marriage, she should go to an LMFT. She should talk to a therapist about that and have somebody with that sort of qualification help her make that call. So we've got another question from Instagram. J. Morgan Schlumig, when someone is exploring church communities, especially from an LGBTQ plus perspective, what do you think are indicators that the congregation you are exploring is healthy and not toxic? This is a fantastic question, because a lot of congregations will have statements on their website and other places that say they are open to everyone, but you go there for a handful of weeks and eventually you start hearing homophobic comments or a message from the stage that is saying that queer people are evil or sinning or going to hell. So I would say there's a couple of things. The first thing that you need to look at is the website, social media account, to see, do they have a statement that explicitly says that they are open and fully accepting of queer people. If they don't, it doesn't mean that they aren't, but that's a really easy, like, oh wait, this group is actually working in that direction. If you go to a church and they have rainbow flags up, again, great sign. I really have a quick test. If you visit a church, you should go up to the pastor afterwards and say, hey, my queer friend is wanting to get married to his fiance, and he and his fiance are gay, and could they do that in your church? And then if the pastor says anything other than yes, you don't need to have a conversation with him. If he says, well, let's go have coffee and talk about it. Nope, none of that. You're in the wrong place. The other thing that you can ask is there any requirement for leadership in the church around sexuality? That's another great question to ask. Okay, let's check. Sorry, that we are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and now Facebook. I am really excited to get to share that on Facebook. If you have a Facebook account, I would love for you to go to Facebook, follow it, share some content. We've got old content and new content coming out there. From Instagram, the Groove Foundation, I think asking. I think a bigger issue we have is context. We see it in the weaponization of the Bible, justification of exactly what Jesus told us not to do. How do we combat that? Well, when it comes to the Bible, that's part of what I try to do. I try to offer a different take on that, and not just from not just from my own head, but from biblical scholarship. If you're looking for that, I think on here, Pete Enns and Dan McClellan are great sources for that. And so I think speaking up, making statements, being publicly, progressively Christian is very helpful. Sharing things on YouTube or Instagram, but really trying to have conversations with people that are loving and accepting, where you're focused not on convincing them or on fixing their theology in one conversation, but really understanding where they're coming from and inviting them to understand where you're coming from and have that kind of conversation. All right, on Instagram, Barefoot Dreamer 59. How much do you love what the monks did on their walk for peace? And what do you say to the man who followed with them with Christian signs and hell messaging? If you had the chance, I saw some news articles on this. I think it's beautiful and brilliant. And I have been at events where people had the signs, and it's disappointing. It is, yeah, it's embarrassing that Christians would do that. But I also think when they're doing that and there is a contrasting action that's happening, it does at least show the rest of the world that that's not the only way that people who claim to be Christian believe and act. Um, uh, Holly the Fox on Instagram asks, "Do you believe that non-believers will go to heaven?" So one of the things on live streams, I don't express my personal views. I generally don't do that, my own personal beliefs, because what I'm wanting to do is help people find beliefs that work for them. And if I share what I personally believe, it has this different dynamic of having to disagree with somebody that maybe you respect or sees an authority. But I will tell you that a lot of different people who believe in the Bible and Christianity do believe that people who are not evangelical Christians, or what they would call born again Christians, will go to heaven. They note a bunch of different things. There's a perspective that looks at, in Romans chapter 1, it says that mankind is without excuse, that no one can say that they haven't heard about God, um, because God can be seen through what God has created. If you've ever seen a sunset or held a baby, you've experienced God. You've learned something about God. And they also will point to the idea that humanity is created in God's image. There's a piece of who God is inside of humanity, and they'll say, "Well, look, that's what is reaching out to the divine when other religions are made." And so people are only held accountable for what they have lived and experienced. And so there's that. Other people will talk about the death and resurrection of Jesus, when those people are trying to focus the death and resurrection on an afterlife result, saying that that was the point of the death and resurrection. They will say that the death and resurrection are ultimately powerful, that there is nothing that limits the power of that, including human choice. That if human choice limited that, then it would be limiting the power of the death and resurrection of Jesus. So those are a couple of ways that people believe. Yeah. On TikTok, David the hypnotist. Do I believe in the afterlife? Again, I think you were probably on here and heard me say it. I don't share my own personal beliefs on here, uh, but I think that the majority of people in the world have some belief that includes the afterlife, and so for me, one of the things that I struggle with is, if the majority of the world believes something, I have to have a really big ego to say everybody else is wrong. Though I think that when it comes to the Bible, there's not a lot in it about the afterlife, right? Even a lot of the verses that people point to and say is talking about the afterlife, when you look at biblical scholars, they will tell you that's actually not the meaning of that verse. There are comments about the afterlife, and you can track a bunch of different beliefs about the afterlife in the Bible. There's multiple. But yeah, it doesn't, but ultimately it doesn't say very much. It talks a lot more about immigrants, a lot more about hospitality and loving and working for justice and peace and all of that than it ever says about the afterlife. And a rabbi once said to me that he felt like if God wanted us to focus on the afterlife, God would have told us more about it. All right, Amy on TikTok, I heard you are coming to Dallas for a conference. Can you please tell more? Yeah, I am hosting a retreat in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's a really small retreat. It's going to be like 10 to 15 people. And it's going to be a place where we get to know each other, get to hang out. We're going to do some different spiritual practices together. And right now there's still early bird pricing. You can go to the link in my profile and register for that retreat. And the retreat is going to be on March the 27th, 28th, and 29th. And the fee for the retreat covers all of your food and housing. You just have to get there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're interested in it, go to the link in my profile, click on the Dallas Fort Worth retreat, and you will also get. Right now today I get to announce something cool. You will also get a pre-release copy of my my new book that is coming out April the 14th. And I just got the book cover for it. It's called Rituals for Heretics, Transcendent Rites for Atheists and People Who Aren't Sure About God. We had to change the title a little bit because it was initially Rituals for Heretics, Atheists to People Who Aren't Sure About God, but the title was too long. But this is the cover, and it's going to come out April 14th. And if you join us in Dallas, Fort Worth, you'll get a pre-release copy of it as part of your registration. So that is another cool thing that is going on. And I'd love for you to be there. All right, we have a question. I think it's from Calado on TikTok. Can a non-believer marry a believer? Yes, they can. There is this is not something that is like prohibited in some way by the Bible. It's interesting. The verse that's often quoted, that was quoted to me when I was growing up as an evangelical, is from Corinthians, and it talks about being unequally yoked. And they would tell me that that means people who do not believe like me. It's interesting. That's not what that verse is talking about. So in Corinth, it was a big metropolitan city. It was a center of commerce, had lots of different nationalities, had lots of different religions, temples to all different kinds of gods. And one of the practices that they had was like a business practice where if you wanted to do business with somebody, part of signing the contract and getting the business was going and making a sacrifice to their God, to basically worship their God. And what Paul appears to be talking about is that practice. Don't yoke yourself to businesses and go and worship another God just to get the business. So don't be unequally yoked. Yoked being talking about the contract that you're doing for that job. Yeah, hope that helps. On Insta, Real Mosaics says lots of people say God is in control, but I'm not sure. What is your take on this? Yeah, I there's a lot of different perspectives on how God's interaction is with the world. Obviously, there are people that want to make humanity out as puppets, that God sort of orchestrates everything. I remember hearing an evangelical preacher when I was a kid saying that, like, God knew that you were going to take that step and you were going to turn your head this way, and God is directing your life at that level. That doesn't seem really great. It also doesn't seem something that matches, I mean, almost any religious tradition, including the Bible. Um, there is a perspective that God gives humanity free will, uh, but that free will is also engaged in a partnership where if you want to partner with God, God will partner with you and will help you live a life and be inspired to do things that you wouldn't do on your own, and empower you to be a better version of yourself than you would be on your own. But not like God is going to make your football team win, or somehow uh, somehow stop a war from happening. Those people would say that if you ask the question, where is God? You really need to ask the question, where are you, or where are the followers of God? Because that's where God is. And the way that God acts in the world is through people, people following being empowered by God and following God's lead on things. And then there are people that are deists that believe that God set up the universe, set it spinning, and left it alone and observes it. Um, so I hope that helps. Preco, um, do I believe in the Canaanite gods? Um, I worship Asherah and Adonai. Um, I don't share my personal beliefs on here, but if you look at the Old Testament, um, it uh, it treats the idea of multiple gods as a real thing. The earlier you get, the less strictly monotheistic their beliefs are. They believe in a divine council where there are multiple gods, and they make the argument that their God is sort of the leader of the divine council. Um, and uh, uh, and Asherah is one of those. It's interesting. One of the ways archaeologists know that they found a Semitic site is they find these little statues that have boobs that are Asherah statues. It seems that the common practice in Israel and among Semitic people was to worship a male and a female god. That's there's that. I just talked about unequally yoked scripture, not talking about marriage. And somebody asked, I was told it was also about being spiritual equals, even if they were Christians. Did they match my maturity level? Yeah, it's just not talking about that. So I heard that, and it often felt like, when I reflect on it, like it was controlling. It was trying to keep you in a bubble with only people who believe exactly like you, which is a practice that actually is a brainwashing technique. Um, so yeah, on TikTok, Olivia shows. Do you think for a couple to be married in a faith sense, there has to be a legal marriage? Um, no, I mean, like, the legal thing and the faith thing are two separate pieces, and so I don't feel like you have to have that to be part of this. Um, uh, yeah. So, um, but I don't know why. I assume why you were having that question is because you're wanting to have some sort of marriage that is not allowable by law. So yeah, I don't think those are the same thing. On TikTok, Maddie Kudenov, do you think the current administration is a good representation of following God? Nope. Full stop. In no way. I can't think of anything that is a good representation of following God from this administration. Maybe there is. Maybe I just haven't read that news article yet. But so far, it's the opposite. Um, okay, I'm looking. I don't see any more. We have the lovely DJ helping me find um, uh, questions from Instagram, Facebook, uh, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and now we have Facebook, which is pretty cool. Um, we have I just started a Facebook page. If you have a Facebook account, I would love your help following that page and sharing content. We've got old content and new content out to help build the followership there. And today I've got a really fun announcement to be able to make. I am I have a book coming out on April the 14th, and I just got the cover for it. It's called Rituals for Heretics, Transcendent Rites for Atheists and People Who Aren't Sure About God. It basically takes rituals from a bunch of different religions, abstracts the God part out, focuses on the psychological need that's being met so that you can put whatever it is that you believe about God. And yet we don't lose this deep human knowledge because we don't agree with some piece about how it approaches God. Also, I'm hosting a retreat in the Dallas area. It's going to be on March the 27th, 28th, and 29th. It's going to be a small gathering. It's going to be just an intimate little group, like less than 20 people. And we are going to do some cool things together. We're going to have some rest time for sure. We're going to do some religious rituals and some study together and just hang out and get to know each other and form some relationships, hopefully there. And I can't wait to get to hang out with you for a weekend. There's a link in my profile. You can click that link. You can go and get more information about the retreat. The retreat cost covers all of your lodging and meals. You just have to get there. It also covers a pre-release copy of my book, Rituals for Heretics. So you'll get that, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So I would love to see you there. Yeah. Okay, let me check and see if DJ has found more questions for us. Yeah, on TikTok. And Nemo Dustman, I love your videos. I'm sure it wasn't your intention, but I left a church during fundraiser sermons. Man, yep. I know many people who have. A lot of churches have teach things and manipulate people out of money. That's why I've got this religious community that I run called Not Church. Actually, DJ, who's here, is part of Not Church, and it's a spiritual community of people of all sorts of religious identities and non-identities. We've got atheists, Christians, Buddhists, Celtic mystics, all kinds of people that are there doing the kind of things that you do in a church, being there for each other in really hard times, processing your own beliefs and religious histories, sharing pictures of our cats. And yeah, because a lot of us there have religious trauma around people being manipulated out of money, we don't ask for donations. It's just $3 a month, and if it doesn't work for you, you just stop paying. And if $3 is something you can't swing, just DM me and I'll get you in for free. But again, you can go to the link in my profile and get involved in it. It's called Not Church, or you can just go to Skeptic Pastor or patreon.com/Skeptic Pastor. But yeah, I totally get leaving church because of the manipulation around money. It is awful. All right. Also, Christina Chit Chat. I'm a librarian. I'll put in a purchase request for your book. That. I also had a book come out last year. This one right here, How to Not Suck as a Christian. And in this, in every chapter, I explain how I sucked as a Christian. Um, uh, that is my qualification for writing the book, and it says good Christians doubt, be pro-choice because God is, don't preach on street corners, don't manipulate people into giving you money, stop defending your faith. There's a lot of really fun chapters in here, and that one's available now, How to Not Suck as a Christian. um, it was a really fun book to write. um, yeah. Another thing, I've started a Substack. If you're a reading kind of person, you can go to skepticpastor.substack.com. There's a bunch of free stuff and some really in-depth stuff if you want to subscribe to that. Um, yeah. So uh, Rad Douglas says, "Hi there from the blue side of the street in Central Florida." Wow, to be a blue dot in that red state, I know how that's feeling. I Yeah, I'm here with you. I've lived in Alabama, so I get that. Also see Whitney Mack. No question, but just letting you know, I've really enjoyed your posts and have learned a lot. Wow, thank you, Whitney. I really appreciate that. Um, uh, yeah. And thank you, Nemo, for that encouragement, as well. Yeah. Um, I've got a new page on Facebook. It's a Skeptic Pastor page, and so we're live now on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. Um, so wherever you are, you can put your questions in the chat. But also, if you have a Facebook account, I'd love for you to follow the page, share some of the content. I'm trying to build up the followers there, right? I've got you know, I just bumped over 300,000 followers when you add up YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. But got like a couple of hundred on Facebook. So yeah, I'd love some help with that if you like my content, and have a Facebook account. On Instagram, Evan Johnson 804. Looking forward to reading your book. Will it be available on Amazon? Yes, it will be available on Amazon, and I'm about to start a little fundraiser campaign to be able to do the audiobook. The audiobook will be interesting because as I read it, you can pause and do the things that are the rituals. And there's also several meditation practices that I will guide you through, and you can pause as well. And some of those are guided imagery meditations, and that's always really helpful to hear and not have to read. So look out for that. Yeah, but it'll be on Amazon. Hopefully, if I can get enough people to help me out, Audible will happen too. I don't make hardly any money off of books. There's no way I could afford to get the studio time and have the audiobook files created. Um, but a lot of people really appreciate audiobooks, and I want them to have access to that. So we sort of all do that together when I come out with a new book. Um, if you've got questions, you can um, uh, uh, you can put them in our live stream on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now Facebook. If you've got a Facebook account, love some help growing that account. Just got started. Um, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun over there as well. Evan Johnson, I have not launched the audiobook support thing yet. I'm hoping to be able to get to that tomorrow. So just watch my feed, or there will be a link in my profile as soon as that happens. Yeah, so that's where you'll be able to support the recording of the audiobook. And the audiobook is the audiobook of this book that's coming out on April the 14th. Um, and I just got the cover for it. I'd love to show it to you. Rituals for Heretics is the book. Transcendent Rites for Atheists and People Who Aren't Sure About God. Basically, it takes some rituals from all kinds of different religions, abstracts the God part out of it, and then really focuses in on the psychological need that is being met in that, so that you can put whatever it is that you believe about God or don't believe about God into that. And if you don't believe a God exists, you can still uh, build on the wealth of all the human knowledge that is developed over meeting the psychological needs through rites and rituals. There are also 16 different forms of meditation in there that you can explore, even if you're just a beginner at meditation. Yeah. So wherever you are, if you've got a question for me, I'd love to answer it. Right now, we're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for the first time, our first Facebook live stream. Yeah, just throw those questions in the chat, and we will do that. I will answer as many questions as I can in this amount of time. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. The lovely DJ is helping me um, find the questions. So on Instagram, uh, what type of meditation would you suggest starting with? Yeah, actually, I do meditation coaching. If you want somebody to help you start with meditation, because a lot of times, really, it's your works for you. You can book one-on-one time with me. There's a link in my profile to do that. I do it for free. If you can afford to pay for it, that's part of how I support what I'm doing. So yeah, I can coach you. I think if you've got a good imagination, guided imagery meditation is really helpful, um, because it really brings you into a world in a way um, that allows your subconscious to bubble things up that you need to pay attention to. That's a really great one. There are text-based meditation practices where you take a text, if you're a reader, process things that way. One of them is called Lectio Divina. That is a really great one that you can start with if you're like that. And if you're like really woo-woo and feel like you can sense the universe in all these places, centering prayer is one of these. Basically, you take a word, you focus on that word, and you allow all of your thoughts to leave. As a new thought comes up, you answer it with the word and let it pass until only the word remains. That's another really great kind of meditation. But like I said, I will coach you on meditation, and you can get one-on-one time with me at the link in my profile. Barefoot Dreamer 59 from Instagram. Could God microwave a burrito so hot that he couldn't eat it right away? Um, uh, yeah, sure. Why not? It's a classic logic fault question, um, uh, where if you believe that God can do anything, you can set up a logic fault. You can do that for all kinds of things. Like if God can know everything, right? Can he know something that he can't know, right? Okay. Vanessa on TikTok, Vanessa Fiji, I think. Evangelicals love a clobber clause, which they have usually misinterpreted. How can we can't counter? So clobber passages are that's often uh, used to refer to the passages in the Bible where people say that being queer is a sin. The Bible does not say that. In fact, the first time homosexuality appeared in the Bible in 1946, it was a mistake, and the translator is actually recognize that mistake, but after it had been published. So there's a great documentary called 1946, the movie you should watch. If you're looking for just a basic run through of those scriptures, um, there's a bunch of great books, including there is a chapter in my book, How to Not Suck as a Christian, called Stop the Homophobia. And I run through all of those passages in there. There's also a really extensive, more academic treatment in Dan McClellan's new book, The Bible Says So. Um, and I think that when somebody tries to use that, you say, look, that's just not a good translation of that verse. And if you can know that, great. If you are talking to an evangelical person who has that belief, I actually recommend a book called Holy Love by Steve Harper. I've got a link to an Amazon list with a bunch of books in it. That one's in there on my profile. But Steve Harper was an evangelical seminary professor who changed his views and became affirming. And so he speaks the native language. It's also a really short book, but it's very accessible to people who have that belief system. Um, uh, okay. I hope that helps, Vanessa Fiji. On Instagram, Granny Cindy Ann. Love your way of teaching and your breadth of knowledge. Thanks. I appreciate that. My breadth of knowledge is just because of a mental fault and an ADHD diagnosis. I get hyper focused on something and can't stop researching it. And I'm also always very afraid that I'm going to say something that's not accurate. Like one time, one time I remember I was going to in a sermon that I was giving when I used to not just be online. I was going to talk about how Jesus was talking about a city on a hill, and he was on the other side of the Sea of Galilee was an actual city on a hill, but it's a long distance, and so I ended up spending an enormous amount of time researching the height of that hill above sea level and how the curvature of the earth would affect that, and the distance without smog, just to make sure I wasn't saying something completely wrong. Right. So I appreciate the breadth of knowledge comment. Um, I enjoy being able to share knowledge with people um, uh, because, um, yeah, it's wonderful. I just glanced and saw somebody on TikTok said the Steve Harper book is great. Holy Love by Steve Harper. It is brilliant. I absolutely adore that book. Um, and recommend it all the time. Um, okay. Tommy G. Hall. Hey, I know you. You haven't texted me today, Tommy. I don't understand. Um, yeah, Tommy G. Hall, how does your nervous system handle the negative feedback? Yeah, some days it's better, some days it's worse. I've got a good therapist. I've got good grounding practices. And the other thing I do, and I think this is helpful for everybody, is I try to uh, pay attention to my emotional state, my emotional bandwidth, and I don't engage in my comments when I don't have emotional bandwidth to do that. Not just to bear the negative comments, but to also be empathetic and sort of fully present in the comments. It sounds ridiculous to some people to say that, but I do feel like comments are an important part of my job because it's the way I engage with the world. Um, and then also, there are days when I get over 1,000 comments, and I just know I'm not going to be able to respond to all of them. So I try to give myself permission to not do all of it. and especially when I don't have emotional bandwidth to do that. But thanks for asking. Um, uh, Deli Girl Lenny, I think, on TikTok. Do you believe in miracles from God? Hmm. Well, I don't share my personal beliefs on here. Part of that is because I will answer your question. Part of that is because I'm trying to help people find spiritual beliefs and practices that work for them. And when I share my personal beliefs, say this is what I believe, um, then if you want to choose a different belief, then I've also just set up, if you respect me, if you think that I know things, you have an additional layer of difficulty in choosing your own belief because you're having to also choose to disagree with me or to think I'm wrong. Um, but I will tell you that there are a lot of people who are Christians who believe in miracles. There are also many who don't. I would say if you look at the Bible clearly not argues, clearly assumes miracles, that God will take divine action to change things in this world. Um, uh, the main problem, though, with miracles in terms of a belief system, it's not a problem to believe that God can do something, but there's something called the God of the gaps. And that is that when there's a gap in our understanding, that we explain or understand or fill that gap with God. And so, before we knew that the Earth orbited around the sun, right? We filled our gap in understanding with God and said that, since God created the Earth, that the sun orbits around the Earth. Problem is, when our knowledge expands and we understand how that happened, then um, then we think that God is wrong or that God doesn't have as much power as we first thought. And this can happen with miracle situations, right? Where somebody experiences a miracle and then either science explains how our bodies do that or explains whatever, and then it feels like less meaningful, less valuable. Um, I I know that some people resolve that piece by saying, well, no, as we expand our understanding and expand our understanding of how things happen, that we're also expanding our understanding of God. And it's not that God is not in that gap, but that we had misunderstood how God is in that gap because God is everywhere and present and all of that. Um, I hope that helps. All right, on TikTok, Absurdist, do you think the books of Enoch should be included? You know what? Let me just check. I think I am sure. Um, um, but here's the thing. When I think I know this answer, but I am obsessed with not telling you the wrong thing. So when I'm not sure, I always fact check myself. Um, so, uh, so the books of Enoch are actually um, uh, included in the Ethiopian Orthodox canon. Often that's First Enoch, or it's called the Ethiopic Enoch, um, and uh, and um, so it is included in one biblical canon. Different streams of Christianity have different collections that they assume are are canonical, are the Bible, and one of those is included in that Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. And so I don't find my a need to determine whether or not something needs to be in a canon or not. That's already been decided by people who are not me, with very long histories of how that happened. Um, and I've got videos about that if you're interested, as well as an episode of the Unbelief podcast where I go very deep dive into how the Bible that the Roman Catholics and the Protestants, the 66 book version, um, uh, came to be. But I'm also not afraid of reading things that are non-canonical, that claim to be scripture, because my I would assert that, if God speaks all the time, God can speak through everything. So there's no problem reading Enoch, just like there's no problem reading Shakespeare and hearing God speak to you through that. If you're a person that feels like God speaks to them through texts. All right. On TikTok, GalSal 2022 just bought my book. Looking forward to reading it. I am assuming you were talking about this one, the How to Not Suck as a Christian. My expertise required for writing this book is having sucked as a Christian and continuing to. But today I actually get to show you something really cool and exciting. I have a new book coming out on April the 14th, and I just got the cover for it. It's called Rituals for Heretics, Transcendent Rites for Atheists and People Who Aren't Sure About God. And basically, it has rituals from all kinds of different religions. And I take the God part out of it, because these rituals are all meeting real human psychological needs. And we keep the ritual, and then that means that you can put in whatever you believe about God or not. If you don't believe in God or not, you still get the benefit of this vast amount of human knowledge that meets these important psychological needs. And yeah, I'm excited for that. April 14th. Um, you will be able to get it. And ahead of time, there'll be pre-release. I'll be selling signed copies, all of that stuff. Absurdist. Okay, I don't know if you believe in modern prophets, but how do you feel about Chris Bledsoe? I don't know who he is. I think that people who predict the future are interesting. There's never really been a reliable person that gives very specific predictions about the future and they actually happen. If there is somebody doing that, I would love to do that. I'd love for them to tell me what's going to happen in the stock market so I could short some stocks or, right. But a lot of times, those people, even if they believe very much that they are sincere, there's not a track record, and they are so symbolic that it doesn't really work out. So I don't know about him, but that's how I feel about the whole telling the future thing. Um, and look at that, Tommy, who just asked a question on here, sent me a text about the question that he didn't ask. So thanks, Tommy. Um, yeah, I am. We're live on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and now Facebook. New Facebook page. I would love for you to help me if you've got a Facebook account. Follow the page, share some content. I'm trying to build the followers. So the reality is, I've got a total of over 300,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, like a couple hundred on Facebook. So I would love some help with that. But yeah, uh, this is, we have a lot of fun on these live streams together. I will, if we've got one more question, I'll answer one more question before I go. You can post your questions in the comments, and I'm doing my best to answer as many of them as I can in the amount of time that I have that my voice will sustain. The lovely DJ is paying attention to your comments and in all those different places so that I can answer them. I'm going to try to answer one more question before we go. I'll tell you, I'm doing a retreat in the Dallas Fort Worth area. That is going to be March the 27th, 28th, and 29th. It's going to be a small gathering, like less than 20 people. It's just a time where we're going to do some meditation practices, explore some of those. We're going to do some of the rituals from that new ritual book, rest, and just get to hang out and get to know each other. Right now, there's early bird special until the 15th. There's a link in my profile. It is going to cover your registration is going to cover all of your lodging, all of your food, and also a pre-release copy of my new book, Rituals for Heretics. So I really would love to get to meet you and hang out. It's going to be a ton of fun. So yeah, please go ahead and look at that. I also run a spiritual community called Not Church. It's full of people of all kinds of religious identities and non-identities, a lot of people who have been hurt by the church. And we do all the things that church does. We support each other. We have a couple of weekly Zoom meetings. We talk about the Bible and religious things, and post pictures of our pets. It's a really great place. And if you're looking for something like that, if you've never found a spiritual community that you could really feel like you could be a part of and explore and ask questions and not be judged, Not Church is for you. You can find that link in my profile. $3 a month because a lot of us has religious trauma from being manipulated out of money. So you do the $3 a month, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you just stop paying. And if you can't afford it, just DM me. I'll get you in for free. You can go to the link in my profile or patreon.com/skepticpastor. All right. Mr. D, why do fundamentalists believe, he's on TikTok, believe so strongly in their truth or version of the Bible? I really, I I have I have a couple of thoughts. I think that the the biggest idea is that when you look at the way that they communicate and operate, um, those religious organizations actually, and I don't think intentionally, but actually are doing things that are brainwashing techniques. For instance, a uh, separating people uh, uh, from their deep connections that might disagree with them or from other thoughts and ideas. They do this by saying that you should not be around friends and family that are going to cause you to doubt. They talk about other viewpoints as being evil or demonic, right? So cutting off your family ties, lack of exposure to outside information, giving a single person a lot of authority. So, for example, a pastor or the institution itself. And then there's an underlying thing that a lot of people have problem with when they leave fundamentalism or evangelicalism, and that is that they have been told, not always explicitly, but there's this implied concept that if you don't accept all of this belief system, if you doubt any part of it, then you aren't a Christian, right? If you're a Christian, you believe this. If you're a Christian, you believe this. Christians do this. Christians think this. Christians vote this way. And the result of that is particularly harmful because when that is the underlying sort of fundamental idea, when somebody doubts one thing, they immediately assume, oh, well, I must not be a Christian. I must be rejecting all of it, when really they're just choosing one different belief. And so I think the brainwashing techniques combined with that underlying thing is why they believe it so intensely. Um, All right. We have had a great time on here, and I want to thank you just for joining um the live stream. If you want to come on the retreat in Dallas, links in my profile. If you want to join the spiritual community, not church, links in my profile. If you're a reading kind of person, skepticpastor.substack.com, link in the same place. And if you're on Facebook too, I'd love for you to follow my account, share the content. Just started it, just a couple of hundred followers. So really could use your help building that presence up. So all those people get to hear all of the experience, all the content. All right. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great day. And thanks, DJ, so much